You know that feeling, right? When you're building an app where every second, no, every millisecond counts, and you can just feel that slight lag from a traditional database that kind of breaks the whole experience. Well, today, we're looking at a tool that's designed to just get rid of that lag entirely. It's built for one thing and one thing only: pure, unadulterated speed. Let's dive into Memgraph.
And it's a fair question, right? For a lot of applications, a little bit of a delay is totally fine. But what about the really high-stakes stuff? Think about trying to catch credit card fraud as the transaction is happening, or serving up the perfect recommendation before a user even has a chance to click away. In those worlds, a millisecond isn't just a delay, it's a total failure. That's why they matter. In these scenarios, latency isn't just a hurdle, it's the enemy.
And this is exactly the kind of problem that Memgraph was built from the ground up to solve. See, we're not talking about your average static data that you might query once in a while. We are talking about data that is alive, it's constantly flowing, it's changing, and it demands to be analyzed right now. In that kind of environment, even a tiny delay doesn't just slow you down, it can make your entire system obsolete.
And here's where you can really see it in action. In fraud detection, a transaction happens and you have just a handful of milliseconds to race through a massive web of connections to figure out if it's legit. Or with network monitoring, you need to spot a potential outage the very second a connection drops. A traditional database that has to go and fetch data from a physical disk, it simply can't keep up with that pace. No way.
So, we've established the problem, latency. And now, the solution, Memgraph. It's really important to get this. Memgraph isn't trying to be the one-size-fits-all database for everybody. Not at all. Think of it more like a specialized, high-performance tool. It's a scalpel, engineered from day one to do one thing exceptionally well: real-time graph analysis at mind-blowing speeds. Here's probably the best way to think about this. A traditional disk-based database, something like Neo4j, is like a massive public library. It can store a practically unbelievable amount of information, right? But if you need a specific book, you've got to walk to the stacks, find the right aisle, and pull it off the shelf. It takes time. Memgraph, on the other hand, is your desk. You can't fit the entire library on it, but everything you need for the task you're working on right now is right there, literally at your fingertips. It's a very direct trade-off. You're giving up that massive library-sized storage for instant, immediate access.
And the secret sauce to all of this is that Memgraph is an in-memory database. What does that mean? It means it keeps the entire graph, all of it, in your computer's RAM. By doing that, it completely sidesteps the single slowest part of any traditional database, actually reading data from a spinning physical disk. And that is how it can deliver answers to really complex queries in sub-millisecond time.
Okay, so we know it's fast because it's in memory. But what does the architecture actually look like under the hood? Let's peel back the layers a little bit and look at the core components that make all this speed possible.
It really all comes down to three key pillars. First, as we've said, is the in-memory storage. That's the engine of its speed. Second, and this is so important, is its native streaming integration. It's built to connect directly to fire hoses of data like Kafka. This means your graph can change and evolve in real time as new information pours in. And finally, it uses Cypher. That's the same query language that Neo4j uses, which is just a huge win for developers because you can jump right in without having to learn a whole new syntax.
So who actually needs this kind of power? Because it's definitely not for everyone. We're talking about developers whose entire application lives or dies based on instant responses. We're talking about fraud and security teams who literally can't afford to analyze an attack after it's already done its damage. And of course, anyone who is working with a constant, never-ending stream of live data, well, they are a prime candidate.
Okay, so let's get practical. Let's say you're a developer and you're starting a new project. How do you decide if Memgraph is the right tool for your specific job? Well, it all comes down to understanding a few key trade-offs.
You should be seriously considering Memgraph if you can say yes to these things. First, is your app's success measured in milliseconds? Second, are you processing a live incoming stream of data? And third, and this is the big one, can your entire data set actually fit into your server's available RAM? If you're nodding your head yes to all three of those, then Memgraph is probably exactly what you've been looking for.
Now, on the flip side, there are some really clear signs when Memgraph is not the right choice. The most obvious one is the size of your dataset. If your graph is terabytes large, it's just not going to be feasible to hold all of that in RAM. Also, if your analytics can be done in batches, say overnight, then you don't really need real-time speed. And finally, if the absolute guarantee of data persistence on a disk is more important to you than raw query speed, then a traditional database is probably a safer bet.
All right, we have to talk about the elephant in the room. Memgraph versus Neo4j. Now look, this isn't a battle to see which one is better. It's not. It's about choosing the right tool for a very specific job. It's all about understanding the trade-offs. So here's the breakdown. Storage, in-memory versus disk-based. Speed. Memgraph is faster, while Neo4j is plenty fast for most things. Scale, this is key. Memgraph is limited by your RAM, Neo4j is limited by your hard drive, which is obviously much, much bigger. Just look at that best 4 row at the bottom. Real-time versus general purpose. It's really like comparing a sprinter to a marathon runner. You have to pick the right athlete for the race you're actually running. Okay, we have covered a lot of ground, so let's boil all of this down. What are the absolute key things you need to walk away with?
If you remember absolutely nothing else, remember this. The decision between Memgraph and other graph databases really boils down to one fundamental choice. Are you willing to trade potentially massive scale for the absolute ultimate in query speed? That's the central question you have to ask yourself.
And that central question really breaks down into these 3 essential points. 1, it's in memory first. That is the source of all its power. 2, it's built for streaming. It's designed to drink from a fire hose of live data. And 3, its biggest strength is, in a way, also its biggest weakness. That incredible speed is directly limited by how much RAM you can afford to throw at the problem.
And so we end up right back where we started, with this single critical question for you. And this isn't just about technology, it's about the entire philosophy of your project. Is it more important for you to be able to store everything, forever? Or is it more important to be able to analyze your most critical data right now, in this instant? That's the choice Memgraph puts squarely in front of you.